And I encourage people to get invested in multiple assets, not just real estate, to build businesses and increase your active income as well. And once you kind of solve that game of money, once you like really figure out how it all works and can put the pieces together confidently, then I don't think you need to worry about money anymore. And that number or that level of money is not that high. And a lot of people think you need to be like ultra wealthy to like have money solved or to not worry about it anymore. Money is one of the biggest causes for stress and one of the biggest causes for divorce. So if you can eliminate the top cause, that's going to give you a higher chance for success in life and in marriage and all of that stuff. So I think it's important to put emphasis on money, at least for a few years or a decade, and to understand how it works and to figure out a way to solve it that works for you, because there's many ways to do it. And once you have that solved, then you can really put all of your focus on the things that do matter in life.
Problems are what? Problems are profits! Welcome to the Problems and Profits podcast. Today we've got Bryan Bouchard who's going to be joining us. But before we talk to Bryan, I want to explain to you guys what the Problems and Profits podcast is all about. So Problems and Profits to me really is, it's more than just a saying. It's more than just a t-shirt. It really is a life philosophy. And it's understanding that you've got the opportunity to have a strong internal locus of control. And in fact, you can choose to take any sort of problem, obstacle that comes along your journey and find an opportunity within that. And far too often, people just naturally want to, especially these days, it feels like, bitch and complain rather than take extreme ownership over their situation. So that's what we'd love to do here, essentially just interview interesting people, entrepreneurs, and individuals that are willing to take ownership over their situation and take that problem, turn it into an opportunity. Hey, Bryan, how's it going?
Doing well. How are you guys?
Doing well. Yeah, it's definitely nice over here and loving the weather. So I'm holding on to every element of summer that I can, but it's starting to slowly slip away.
Yeah, absolutely. I just got away for this past weekend. Might be the last one for the year, but the weather was nice. Get out on the water. Typical Canadian type of thing to do is to just soak it up before it changes drastically.
Absolutely. I think I saw you were at some sort of cottage or something like that.
Yeah, I was up at a cottage near Muskoka, and just spending a couple of days with good friends and enjoying every last minute.
That's awesome, man. Well, we'll get into some warm-up questions with you here. So first one, I love this one, is what's the most expensive thing that you've ever broken?
That I've ever broken?
Yeah.
I mean, I think back to when I was young, like I was into motorcycles and fast vehicles at that time, and I got my first like sport bike at 20. And I mean, you know where I'm going with this, but I was just kind of a bit reckless and full of energy and adrenaline, and I would take these things to high speeds and high levels, and thankfully I didn't get injured in the process. But just doing wheelies and things like that, coming down, not enough space to come around a corner, put the bike down and watched it just slide across the road and smash into a curb. And I mean, at the time that was a big expensive break at 21 years old.
Absolutely.
All right. And so question number 2 here for our warm up is $1 million in 24 hours. And after that, it disappears. What would you put that $1 million towards?
Well, I think I'm putting my investor mindset aside here and just taking the question at face value. I think I would just throw in hell of a party. Like what I've discovered over my years of investing in things, like money is so much more appreciated spending on experiences over materials. I mean, you could spend $1 million in materials in less than an hour walking into a dealership. So, I mean, I would spend it on experiences, and I would recruit my closest friends and family, bring them together. You'd probably have to just focus on planning right in the first half hour to an hour. How are we going to spend this? It would definitely involve chartering a jet. It would involve a yacht. It would involve the best weather. It would involve ridiculous amounts of food and experiences, beach, massages, all that stuff. Just spend $1 million on experiences for everybody who's important to me.
Nice.
I love that. Yeah, I think that a lot of people value things, but the more that you live and experience, it comes down to the actual time with people and people that you care about. So I appreciate that answer there in terms of just like blowing all of the money on an incredible experience. That sounds epic. So next question, I guess, kind of ties into that a little bit, but why are you you?
Why am I me? I mean, I'm a firm believer that wherever we are now is just the exact sum of all the decisions that we've made. And that's just going back. Every day we're faced with so many decisions, day in and day out, every day of the year, multiple decisions. And the result of that is going to be where you are today. Some of those decisions are more significant and less significant than others. Some of those are super important, and those can literally change from you being rich or poor, or you being healthy or unhealthy, successful, unsuccessful. Those decisions are important. And, I'm blessed to be born in a country that offers a lot of opportunity. That's huge. I'm blessed to be born with all of my senses and all of my limbs and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's a huge advantage too. But all of the decisions and challenges that you're faced with, how you kind of react to those and the decisions you make is going to be the exact sum of where you are now. I think that's why I'm here. Like, that's why. And I know when it comes down to those decisions, like, you have a capability of making them. Not everyone can make, your ability to make the best decision might not actually be the best of what you're capable of, but that's based on the understanding and the knowledge that you have at that moment. So you have to kind of make good decisions while still increasing that capacity. And that's like forever learning. And that's a huge advantage, is to have the ability to continue learning throughout your life. And that's exciting to me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that, Bryan. And I'd love to actually, for everyone listening today, is break down a little bit of where you are now in your journey of investing in business, and just kind of an overview of what you've done in the past and what's gotten you to where you are now.
Yeah, sounds good. I mean, you want to start with my story, or just go into some questions?
Yeah, let's just roll a little bit on your story just for some context here, and then we'll jump into a few questions.
Yeah, like, I started out just in a middle-class family with the mindset on money was you trade your time for it, in the form of an hourly wage or a salary, and traditional old school type of mentality that, like, kind of investing is risky, getting into business and entrepreneurship is risky. Jobs are how you make money. You get an education and you get the job and you trade it for money, and you don't take too much risk. So to break free from that was literally me stumbling upon that Rich Dad Poor Dad book that my brother introduced me to. He got it from the library or something like that. And thankfully it was at such a young age. I think I was 20 when I read that. And it was so different from how I was raised and how I talked about money with coworkers and just people in my peer network. And it just really changed things for me. And it just spoke to me so much that I realized that I needed to get into business and real estate. And I got into real estate a lot earlier than business. I still worked jobs and got into real estate. I leveraged those, T4 incomes, which is a super big advantage, and just slowly started building my real estate portfolio starting in 2009. I started in a slow, basic way of just house hacking and renting the basement till I had enough of a down payment to buy a second property and rent the existing. I tried the lease to own deal with my brother, and we had a successful lease to own deal in like 2010 or 11. And then I was at a big standstill when I quit my job to play poker full time. So I was a pro poker player for 3.5 years, and that put my real estate investing career at a standstill because I couldn't get mortgage loans. And then eventually I got back into the working world because I was applying to the fire department during those 3.5 years, which is very competitive. Finally, I got my spot, got that T4 income again, could ramp up my investing career. At that point, I just kind of started going to more advanced strategies, into bigger properties, keeping as many properties as I possibly could. And eventually that kind of got to where I am now, is getting into kind of larger multifamily, burst strategies, joint ventures, and raising capital from investors.
Yeah, appreciate you breaking down your backstory and just giving us some context here, Bryan. And so, coming from that middle-class background where it was very, and I think a lot of us have experienced this, right? The idea that what you do is you upgrade your skill set so you can exchange time for more money than the average person. And that's how a lot of people perceive getting ahead in the rat race. So when you decided to kind of take the path less traveled, becoming a real estate investor and then eventually getting into businesses as well, was there challenges there? Because from my perspective, most people, when they first decide to take that step or answer that call to adventure, it's definitely outside of their comfort zone, and oftentimes even outside the comfort zone of their friends and family, who are very conditioned just to expect, go get a job, get a promotion, get more money per hour, and keep trying to stack in that direction, rather than necessarily expanding and investing into assets rather than just, your JOB.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the first problem would have come with the first property, which was becoming a landlord at age 22 and taking on all those responsibilities. Like the house hacking strategy, the house hacking strategy is low risk, in my opinion, and a great way to enter the real estate investing space because you're in the property and you have a lot of hands-on ability there. But just like, finding tenants, managing like broken this, broken that, replacing all that stuff, that was a challenge in the beginning, and doing everything for the first time. And I would not have the resources to just outsource everything like I do now. So of course I was managing and I was fixing things. I was learning how to replace and fix a lot of things around the house. Never enjoyed it right from the beginning, but I had to do it. It was my only choice. I thought outsourcing I thought getting to the point of outsourcing was a huge milestone. Like that's how far away I was from it. And then just starting my first property, I had to do everything on my own. And like that would have been a dream to just like have a property manager and have contracting team and not do anything. So I had to learn all that firsthand, and it just came from experience. I mean, the stuff is not that complicated or that difficult, but you make these little mistakes along the way and you just correct from them, and just kind of having the mindset of learning from those mistakes. I mean, not everybody expects you to be perfect anyways. I mean, the people that are coming in to rent the properties from you, they're not going to call you out on, I was called out on being a young landlord and stuff like that, but I mean, this minor issues. I mean, that was nothing. As long as you had a lease in place, you had applications, you had a process for doing your due diligence, doing your background checks. That's standard. It's pretty easy to pick up the standard, especially when there's so many resources out there to learn from.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely appreciate that context as well. And also one thing that I'd love to dive into here in your backstory is your time as a professional poker player. That's something that not everyone has in their backstory. So I'd love to break that down and hear a little bit more context on how you think that has impacted your decision making going into investing.
Yeah. In 2016 and 17, I was blogging for a while, for a couple of years. I had a blog site called Millionaire Millennials. And one of my first few posts was about poker and investing and how they're related. And it was like a 2-part series because there's so many things that tie poker and investing together. They're both very calculated. They're both numbers games. They're both analytical. And I was just kind of tying those two things together. And like my experience as a pro poker player for those years was interesting, because you had to have the right skill set and stay super focused and determined on what you were doing and not kind of deviate from the path. And there's so many players that are just playing recreationally and not making the correct decisions, not thinking through these decisions, not being analytical enough. And you could see the difference between a pro and a recreational player. Very similar in the investing world, the pro and a recreational investor, and how they handle their businesses and their systems and processes for going about doing that stuff. But I mean, it was super fun doing that and having the freedom to kind of work my own hours. The casinos are open 24/7, so you can work day shift, night shift, afternoon shift, take days off, travel, play in Florida, play in Vegas, Atlantic City. I did all that stuff and make those trips profitable trips while still having fun and traveling. That was kind of the business, and I loved doing it. I had 3 properties at the time doing that, and I didn't buy a single additional one while being a pro because, like I said, the financing looked like zero. You can't use casino income as earned income. On the plus side, you don't pay any taxes on it. But I mean, that was a huge challenge on the real estate side during those 3 years.
And then, so I guess just kind of exploring that, the challenges of not being able to finance properties while you were going through that phase of your career. Now that you've continued to invest as an investor and learn more tricks and just kind of best practices of the trade, do you think, is that still a constraint that you would be faced with today tomorrow you had no T4 income, or over time have you developed different strategies, techniques, and approaches to allow you to overcome what in the past was an obstacle?
That's a great question, because no, I mean, this goes back to like, if I knew then what I know now, I would do things a lot differently. So that was my capacity that was limited back then, thinking if I don't have income, I can't get properties. Super small-minded. Whereas going back, I mean, I had experience as a real estate investor at that time. People would have invested with me if I knew how to raise capital. I knew how to put a joint venture deal together. The only missing piece I had was financing. I had the down payment, the experience. I knew what a good deal looked like. I didn't have financing, but it wasn't a big enough problem for me, or it wasn't at the forefront of my thinking for me to go say, how do I get financing, or how can I raise capital for this? And, you know, I was aware of like private money, but paying 12% interest seemed absolutely crazy to me. And like that was not an option, and I couldn't justify buying anything that could warrant a 12% interest on the loan. So I just I was okay with putting that real estate side at a standstill for those years. However, if I knew what I know now, I would have expanded during all that time and used all the cash from poker and put it into real estate on the side. Whereas at that time I was putting into the stock market because I didn't need financing.
Mm-hmm. And so how do you, like, you know, these days keep the unknown unknowns from holding you back? I was recently just on a call with one of my team members and trying to help them understand that, you know, from my perspective, it often comes down to just how badly do you want it, right? Have you really been thinking about it? How important is it? Because oftentimes it can be easy for us to rationalize, right? Like, oh, well, other people don't get mortgages when they don't have a job, so I can't do that either.
I love what you said there, because I say that so often. I say, how badly do you want it? It's literally written in my closet. It's been posted there for like 5 years. And, you know, when you want something badly enough, you'll explore ways to get through it. But you also touched on something there called like the unknown unknowns, which means you're not even aware of what you do not know. And I remember seeing a pie chart one time that was broken into 3 categories of what you know, what you don't know, and what you don't know you don't know. And the what you know category is a tiny little sliver on that pie, what you know. And what you don't know is maybe 2 or 3 times that. And then what you don't know is gigantic. And how do you tap into that? I mean, that is like, there's a few things that you can do, and that's like expanding your network and talking to people and surrounding yourself with people that are in more successful places or have done things that you want to do, whether it's money or fitness or health, any of those things. Surrounding yourself with people who have done it, surrounding yourself with people who are also driven and discussing ideas and pushing each other, and just having this like never ending thirst for more knowledge, and, you know, exploring podcasts and books and resources on things that you have never dove into before, and constantly increasing your knowledge. That's how you're going to kind of tap into that unknown area.
And
Absolutely.
any tips when it comes to networking? Because one of the biggest things I see holding back a lot of aspiring real estate investors, or those that maybe have 1 or 2 successes under their belts, is this, I don't know, fear that others are going to judge them, or like, why would that person that's so successful want to talk to me or interact or share the tricks of the trade?
Yeah, I mean, on one side, that's just a mental barrier that you kind of have to get over just by pushing yourself to the edge and being uncomfortable. But on the other side, you don't just have to look for people that are just like super successful and have done things that you haven't done. I also said, like, you know, surround yourself with people that are also driven, and they have their own networks, and you exchange networks, and you just get into the habits of meeting people and getting out of your home. And right, like, I mean, when I was young, I would spend a lot of my time reading books and staying at home. Like, my knowledge was increasing greatly, but that suffers on the networking side if you're at home reading books all day. I mean, you just have to be out there at conferences and networking events and dinners, and just being extroverted when you're outside, you know, and just talking to people, not just in real estate environments, but just building a network everywhere you go, like where you're a regular, you know what I mean? Just kind of talking to people and genuinely wanting to learn from others and offering value as well. Like, you have your own set of experiences and knowledge that you can share to other people. You don't just have to be a sponge and look for ways that you can pull off of other people. You should have a genuine interest in helping others as well. It's a mutual benefit.
For sure. Yeah. And one of the things that I'd love to explore with you a little bit further too is coming off of the poker scene and getting back into properties and getting back into investments. You've now transitioned several times over your strategies. So I'd love to hear from your perspective what the best way is for an investor or for a business owner to start to transform their business model or start to really get into a new niche or a new space within the industry?
Yeah, I changed strategies several times over the years, and I wouldn't change a thing. Like, I like to explore different areas. That's part of my personality, and I think some people are that way, where they like to have their hands in a few different things. That could be a few different real estate strategies, or that could be a few things that are not even involved in real estate. And I've also I've always had my time kind of split between a few different endeavors. That's what makes me happy, and I feel like fulfilled doing that. Other people can be an absolute specialist and zero in on one niche area and become a specialist. And I think that's amazing too, just not me. But when it comes to transitioning into different strategies, I mean, there's different ways of doing that. But I mean, that networking approach, that having like a coach or a mentor is going to really help you and get into new areas or new strategies of real estate. I like real estate because it's so versatile. There's many ways that you can make money in real estate. And I think it's good to experiment and find where your niche is or find what you like the most. Try a few different things. It's not something that you can take lightly. We're talking hundreds of thousands or more dollars. So you do have to be educated and knowledgeable when you're changing strategies. But just being kind of aware and like having this mindset that you're always going to figure it out. Like, you're just going to solve these problems that come your way. You can't prepare yourself fully for all the problems that are going to come your way. Real estate is full of them. And all of us have experienced this, that they come out of nowhere. There's always going to be problems that you've never solved before. And just having the mindset that you're going to get through it. There's always a way. And there's always someone else who has done it. There's resources to like post questions now in scenarios and get an answer from people in like, on Ontario Landlord Facebook group. And you can get experienced landlords giving you advice on your specific situation, like within an hour. So it's
Absolutely.
pretty easy to get some guidance and help. Or if you want to really accelerate that, you can just hire someone to guide you through that and kind of be your ears and eyes and go through the problems with you.
Absolutely. Now, speaking to overcoming adversity and challenges in your business, I definitely agree with that mantra of, everything is figure outable, and no matter what it is that you're in the weeds for, you can figure it out. So, have there been any stories or moments that you'd like to share that maybe was a really challenging time in your business or a failure that led you to then further succeed in that avenue or in that pathway?
Yeah, there was one period in particular where I was just having multiple problems at multiple properties, different tenants, multiple like tenants that were not paying rent, which was putting a lot of stress on me to kind of cover all the costs of the portfolio on its own. As I was watching like 2 units just rapidly deteriorate, the tenant relationships were deteriorating just because of a couple of really bad problem tenants, combined with like day-to-day, landlord issues. But what it did was it just dragged on for a period of about 6 months of not being able to solve these problems just because of kind of the way that the laws are and things like that. And it made me think of just quitting and walking away and selling everything. And I was seriously contemplating it. I think if real estate was more liquid, I would have done it. But the fact that it's not easy to sell a portfolio, and that's probably an emotional decision, even though that emotional decision can last weeks or months, it's good that I couldn't just liquidate in the course of a week or something like that. Ended up holding through. Those problems eventually got solved as I could get the tenants out and renovate the units and get new tenants in there. And, I was using borrowed capital to do it too. So it was difficult and it lasted a while, but eventually I did become stronger because I had those problems again afterwards, but the second time is so much easier than the first time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It like the things that used to scare me 5 years ago about my investments in businesses now, maybe this is a bad sign, but they're just daily occurrences where they don't even rock the boat to any noticeable effect, in my opinion. I wanted to circle back, Bryan. You mentioned earlier when we were kind of talking about unknown unknowns and, going out there and networking and looking to just genuinely learn from people. And that's something that I actually think a lot of people struggle with. Oftentimes, I find when someone first starts networking or asking for help in real estate, what they're looking for is more someone to give them permission to either do something or not do something, right? So they'll be like, how can I buy a 20-plex with 5% down? And then what you want to do is explain to them that, like, hey, you know what? It sounds like you're really looking for like a CMHC insured mortgage. This is a whole different thing. It's not really going to be used too often in this scenario. And I can usually just see, like, they just kind of tune me out. And they're like, oh, he's not giving me the answer I was looking for, so I'm going to not listen. So any tips for anyone on just how to actually go about genuinely learning? Because I think it's a skill set that will serve anyone and everyone, regardless of what endeavor you're looking to take on.
Yep. I think that a lot of people have kind of that quality that you just mentioned there, is that they have this question that they want to get answered. And if it doesn't get answered, they're still stuck in that tunnel vision of that question and they're ignoring everything else. Whereas that person who you're approaching still has a lot of knowledge that they're trying to share. And maybe they're trying to get to like the preliminary steps that don't directly answer the question for you, but you should just be genuinely learning and listening and kind of filter it yourself without like putting your blinders on and not accepting what they're trying to tell you, or just putting yourself in more of these situations. Sometimes it's just volume rather than just like trying a conference once, or I approached a professional once, I didn't get the answer, or he was rude to me and it didn't work. Right, and then using such a small sample size to base the result on. But like I said, you can just kind of start small on the networking side and just be genuinely interested in others and get into more conversations and start with things that are on your level, that you're comfortable speaking about, as opposed to trying to skip to the end level and ask the very advanced questions or be around the most advanced people. Scale up if you're struggling, because you touched on something that is common, and people are struggling to get in these conversations or struggling to build their network. And you got to start where you are comfortable. Everybody does have a comfort zone, and you just got to slowly build it up. Some people are capable of just going all out, and just going right for it and approaching. If that's not you, that's normal too. But you have to just scale up slowly and start with conversations that make sense to you, that you can kind of just go back and forth. Or maybe you want to improve your communication skills and actually take action on your communication. That might be the problem, and maybe you need to study it or go to something like Toastmasters. I've done it myself too. I'm a natural introvert, without a doubt. I've gone to Toastmasters, was scared the crap out of me to get on stage and like do a speech spontaneously in front of a room that I don't know. But that will take you out of that comfort zone, and that'll give you some kind of confidence to do it in the future, and to just be natural in conversations, and to speak, and to be around groups, and to be around other people. And that's how you're going to build your network over time.
Awesome. Yeah, really appreciate you sharing that. And I guess one question that we always love to explore with people, entrepreneurs, investors, constantly taking on new challenges. Is there currently a problem that maybe you just don't have the time, the energy, the capacity to go solve, that you're like, hey, if someone chooses to figure out or tackle this problem, there's actually a huge profit, a huge opportunity lying just below the surface?
Yeah, it's been something that I've been working on for quite some time, and I've actually freed up enough time to take action on it. And that's like, I've been coaching people one-on-one for a few years now. People that are like intermediate investors or beginner to intermediate that want to scale their portfolios and things like that. And there's a fair amount of people that are in those positions. A lot of your audience is probably in that position, but I've changed the target audience and the people who I want to help. And that's the people who are not even there yet. Those are the people that are maybe where I was before I read that Rich Dad Poor Dad book, where trading time for money, not even realizing how to make money, how to use borrowed money effectively, how to invest, who haven't even, don't understand even the macro level of interest rates and inflation and things like that. So I want to tap into that segment on a large scale, as opposed to the one-on-one on a small scale for intermediate investors. So I'm going to do that in the form of online courses, and I'm going to build out like personal finance 101 type courses to really attract the people to get their wheels turning preliminarily before even getting into investing in real estate. Like that would be more advanced level, just to start getting people to think like, wow, there's another way, and this is the way to start. I want to start from step one and build the entire process to get you to the advanced level. If the one-on-one coaching is the most advanced product, I want to start the beginning product and fill the gaps to get you all the way there. And then you can take that in that investing career or the financial career as far as you want to go. And I encourage people to get invested in multiple assets, not just real estate, to build businesses and increase your active income as well. And once you kind of solve that game of money, once you like really figure out how it all works and can put the pieces together confidently, then I don't think you need to worry about money anymore. And that number or that level of money is not that high. And a lot of people think you need to be like ultra wealthy to like have money solved or to not worry about it anymore. And money is one of the biggest causes for stress and one of the biggest causes for divorce. So if you can eliminate the top cause, that's going to give you a higher chance for success in life and in marriage and all of that stuff. So I think it's important to put emphasis on money, at least for a few years or a decade, and to understand how it works and to figure out a way to solve it that works for you, because there's many ways to do it. And once you have that solved, then you can really put all of your focus on the things that do matter in life.
Awesome, Bryan. Yeah, definitely appreciate that. And the full scope of being able to help people at every stage of their development in financial success is definitely very impactful. So anything else you want to share here, Bryan, in terms of closing thoughts on the podcast today?
Just a continuation on that, like I think there's a big gap to fill there on the like financial education side. So that's where the majority of my time is being focused now. I'm spending less time building my real estate portfolio. I'm selling off a couple of my weakest performers, and I want to focus more on this business called More Money Club, which helps on the personal finance side from A to Z. And that's something I'm super passionate about. It's something that I've always kind of had an issue with. You've probably heard it so many times, that it's not taught in school and things like that. Well, I mean, that's why it's such a gap that needs to be filled. And I'd be happy to like take a small part of that and do it. It's going to be Canadian based, because Canadian tax rules and Canadian laws are different from American. And there's a ton of American content out there, not that much Canadian. And I want it to be specific on the tax rules and laws and focus on helping Canadians be better with their money.
Awesome. Definitely appreciate that. And Bryan, if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Best way to start is Instagram, Bryan J. Bouchard. Send me a message or follow the link tree. That's the easiest way.
Awesome. All right, Bryan. Well, thanks for joining us on today's Problems or Profits podcast episode. Definitely appreciate the chat and the context here on gaining mentorship and changing your mindset around money. So definitely appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. I appreciate being on the show, and I love what you're doing as well.